Hello, everyone. This is Jerome Waddle, and today's reading is a reconstruction of a slide presentation talk I recently gave on dreams. The topics covered are: what are dreams? What are your dreams trying to tell you? And how dreams are important messages from Source and various ways to interpret the language of dreams. What are dreams? Dreams go back to ancient Greece, where Hippocrates hypothesized that dreams are a sign of illness. Sigmund Freud believed dreams are methods to avoid emotional stress. Carl Jung viewed dreams as a way to problem solve through archetypal conflicts. Technically, dreams are an involuntary series of sensations, emotions, ideas, and images that mainly occur during what's called rapid eye movement, REM, the REM stage of sleep. What's important is that they're involuntary. You can't help it. They'll emerge during your sleep period, whether you want to or not. So they're you have no will or control over them. So they are involuntary. If you look at what Sigmund Freud said, if you remember, he came up with the id as the unconscious, the ego, the superego, and his particular psychology was dreams represent a disguised fulfillment of a repressed wish. And of course, you've heard of his psychology is about libido, sexual energy, and called the Oedipus conflict. And then we have Carl Jung, dreams as the psyche's attempt to communicate important things to the individual as a way of knowing what was really going on. And Jung founded analytical psychology. And so his notion is that the collective unconscious, human beings are connected to each other and their ancestors through a set of shared experiences. So he sees as what's going on is your psyche's attempt to communicate this information. Federico Fellini, who is probably recognized as one of the greatest and most influential filmmakers of all time, brought to the screen exuberant imagery shaped by his encounter with Jung's ideas, especially Jungian dream interpretation. Fellini preferred Jung to Freud because Jungian analysis defined the dream not as a symptom of a disease that required a cure, but rather as a link to archetypal images shared by all of humanity. So I myself prefer the Jungian approach, although the other approaches can be useful. But Marie-Louise von Franz was one of Jung's closest associates. He collaborated with Jung for 30 years, and she analyzed 65,000 dreams. Dreams show us how to find meaning in our lives, how to fulfill our own destiny, how to realize the greatest potential of life within us. She analyzed over 65,000 dreams with people, and she said, and not any one of them were the same. They were similar, but not the same. They were personal. And she also did not like dream directories, dictionaries, symbols, and so forth, because she felt that these could lead you off the path, and you really need to take a personal look at the dreams. So what I'll present today is her methodology of analyzing a dream. She said that there's 4 levels of understanding. Firstly, the dream represents an unconscious reaction to a conscious situation. So if you, during the day, said something to someone and you thought you shouldn't do that or something that it may come up in a dream. So that's kind of like a personal association or something that's said that the dream's trying to look at. Secondly, the dream describes a situation which has come about as a result of some conflict between consciousness and the unconsciousness. So the ego consciousness is what your willpower and so forth throughout the day and your training and so forth. But sometimes the unconscious, uh, they say there's a conflict here. Thirdly, the dream represents a tendency in the unconscious whose purpose is to effect a change in the conscious attitude. And lastly, the dream represents unconscious processes, which may have no recognizable relationship to consciousness. So with these four aspects of understanding is how you should approach a dream. As she says, the meaning of the dream will include all of these perspectives. So in her structure of a dream, she treats it like a drama, maybe like Fellini did, and is look at it from a dramatic standpoint. It's a story. But she has an introduction, which is the exposition. So that means the setting of the dream and the naming of the problem. And she said that's usually just in the first, if you write down your dream, it's the first sentence of the dream. And she recommends that you write down your dream, that you also tell your dream to others and share those dreams. It kind of relates back to the tribe that they analyzed called Sonoy. And the Sonoy dream work, that particular culture, if anyone had a dream, they would first of all tell their immediate family, and then if the immediate family thought it was important, they would tell the tribe and culture, and they would all take a look and analyze the dream because they thought many dreams portended certain things. It doesn't have to be an expert. As a matter of fact, Carl Jung used to share his dreams with a farmer down the road. And just the fact of him telling the dream to the farmer, he got it all of a sudden. Something came to him. So it's, she recommends that you at least express your dream in some form, tell someone, because another person can see your backside, which you can't see. And so they might be able to provide some insight. The story is the second part, which is the peripetua, and that's the ups and downs of the story as the storyline tracks. And you'll see some changes, and it could be a reversal of fortune or a change in circumstances. And then at the end, usually at the end, is called the solution or the lysis. And so that's the end solution that's revealed, and it's at the end of the dream. Or perhaps it could be even a catastrophe. So what I'm going to do is to take these three structures, and I'm going to present a dream that I had. This was a dream I had probably about 20 years ago. And I had retired from a telecommunications company as a manager, and they offered me an early retirement package. And so I retired at age 54. And so I wasn't planning on it at all. It was just a surprise. So here's the start of the dream. So the introduction or the exposition is called the setting of the dream and naming the problem. So I was driving to a theater at night in my car. And as you can see, it looks like it's sunset as I'm going on the traffic. And then I get a text, and it says that there's a change of location to another theater across town. And I said, well, that I felt strange as no reason was given as to why it was moved and why right now before a performance. So what you do is this first introduction scene is so I'm trying to do some associations here. So you can see that it's sunset. So sunset is moving from daytime to nighttime. And so it's a transition. So you're moving. A text message, which was strange because I don't do text messaging and I have an analog phone, by the way. A change of location to another theater across town. Uh, so it just seems like what, you know? So anyway, so that's the problem is that what in the world's going on? So that's the setting and naming of the problem. And so then all of a sudden the dream changes. Well, as you can see, I'm going down this road and the leaves are falling off the tree, and I'm on this way to the theater. And it looks like, well, there's hasn't been any other cars going down this road onto the theater. So I felt, well, this is interesting, you know. And also, you notice that the the timing has changed, so it's no longer going to dusk. So it's sometime during the daytime. And so this is where the story starts. So it's the peripetua, which the ups and downs of the story, and it's where a sudden reversal or fortune or change in circumstances can occur. So what I do is in this particular scene, it's late fall, and you saw the road driving up, and I drove up to the theater, and in the parking lot there were brown leaves everywhere, like nobody's been around cleaning up or anything, and there was no one around. The theater looked closed, and then I came to a storage bin or a dumpster, and it was full of brown leaves, no color, just stacked with leaves. It was overflowing, and I just was taken aback. And I said, "What is going on here? These a dumpster, the brown leaves." It was very discomforting to me. Like, what in the world, you know? And I was really fascinated with this particular picture. Scene two, I noticed the theater doors were locked. No people were around. And so I had this kind of eerie feeling as to, am I in the right place? What is going on here? Uh, Scene three, another car arrives and a couple got out of the car and they had the same text. And so we're still questioning what's going on. And then scene four, more people show up, disappointed. And so I said, well, what are we going to do? I know the play, so let's see if we can perform the play. So what we did is we got a group, and another woman said, well, I can do this part because she knew the play. And so we started putting on this play on this hill. There was a hill above the um, theater. And so we just started putting on the play, having fun. And it's among these trees, the nature outside. And we were just, and then several of the actors that were going to be in the actual play that was to be performed showed up. And so we were just putting on a play, having fun, jumping around, so forth. And then, scene six, a stage truck shows up. It's got all the stage equipment, lighting, sound, and costumes, and so forth. And everyone cheers when the truck shows up. And then in the next scene, which is the solution or lysis, uh, this is the final scene. Everyone pitches in to unload the truck and move it into the theater. And so this represents the person with the carrying the cards. This was me, and I was in the dream as me. Uh, And now as I was rolling, this is sound and lighting equipment. My background's in some theater and running sound and lighting equipment. And so I was rolling this into the entrance to the theater, and there was golden light shining from the theater, and it was just glowing. So I was moving this into the light. So this was the final scene. So what I do after that is made a storyboard. So we use storyboards a lot for, particularly if you're designing a play or and so forth. So I just plotted all these pictures in the storyboard, just kind of get a sequence of events. And so I start looking at it as to where you can see the mood changes. You can see we were going to from daylight to dusk, which is a transition point. The scene shifts to fall, which is, winter's approaching after fall. The leaves were kind of dead, and this could almost be like, something happened here. So it must be, I could say, well, it's probably related to the fact that I was given early retirement and I was just kind of at a loss of what to do. I had not planned on it, so I didn't know what to do. So, and apparently this was one of the dreams. And then I show up, and it's still a little bit eerie, but it's getting brighter. Uh, the scene here, uh, and then as more people show up, and then in this scene, which is kind of the centerpiece, we start just the light, bright, so forth, going on, having fun. And then when the stage truck shows up, and then everybody pitches in, and we go up to the golden light, they call it. So this is a change in mood and so forth. So we analyze this like Marie-Louise von Franz. Uh, the dream represents an unconscious reaction to a conscious situation. And of course, we could check that off because my conscious situation was, retirement and so forth. And we could describe the situation as some conflict between consciousness and the unconsciousness. So you could look at that as well. My ego, from being in a successful career for 30 years, leading groups and so forth, was at an end, and I was at a loss of what to think about. So this is kind of an answer coming through. And then thirdly, a tendency in the unconscious whose purpose is to affect a change in a conscious attitude. And so I can see that, yes, after the dream was over, my whole attitude has changed. And also, the last one is the dream represents unconscious processes which have no recognizable relation to consciousness. So let's take a look at that one. Um, so this could just be a collective scene of the cycles of life and so forth as we go through them. My basic thing, it's the way I interpreted this, I took it as a map of a change and transition point in my whole uh, life. So what I see it as is that what the change in attitude was, hey, there's some things you can do. And part of it, I think, is getting together with groups and also putting on some stage productions and so forth, which originally in college, I had a minor in speech and drama, theater, and radio and television production. So I'm getting back into that realm. So it's kind of and as you can see, it's kind of what we're trying to do is say that this is more or less of a holistic approach, but it also can be a metaphor for life itself in transition. So birth, death, and rebirth. So you could also look at it from that particular phenomenal standpoint. So I also look at it from in my career, I was a Myers-Briggs type uh, administrator and gave training groups in terms of the different psychological types. And so I also see this as a proper balance of cognitive functions, which where sensing is the observer looking for things that don't make sense. So the first part of the dream didn't, what's going on? That's the sensing. Feeling is the moral compass that keeps the train on its tracks. It's the navigator. So here is the feeling and so forth that what's going on. And then thinking is the influencer that organizes the effort, providing momentum. So, let's say, hey, let's solve the problem. Solution is let's just put on a play and let's change the mood. And then intuition is the headlight that illuminates the track ahead. And I really like this description because if you look back at what's here is what you would call the intuition, and it lit the track ahead. So anyway, that's just an example of what I see as my interpretation using von Franz's approach. And if you're interested, there'll be a description in the links. Von Franz did a dream series, and it's right now it's on YouTube, but she did a series of film in 1987 called The Way of the Dream, and with Marianne Woodman, who was a Jungian analyst, and they had 4 DVDs, but it's an excellent series. It's 10 hours, but it is available on YouTube. I don't know how long it'll be there because sometimes it comes up and goes down. And also, the sources for some of this were from Marcus West's Jungian Dream Interpretation. There's some websites, which is WebMD, Sleep Disorders Features, Dream Interpretations. So you get a technical view. And then Kay Garth's Dreamtime Underworld. So these are just some resources. It takes a while, to take a look at these, but I hope this has been useful. And I hope I've answered some questions briefly about what are dreams, what are your dreams trying to tell you, and how dreams are important messages from source, the various ways to interpret the language of dreams. So thanks for listening. And these resource links that I gave you are also in the description, the clickable resource links. And feel free to make comments, and thank you.